What's up, everybody? My name's Paddy McDonald. Welcome to the Leaders with Heart podcast, where today I am so excited to share this conversation with one of my best friends and one of my coaches, actually, Ryan Magdziarz, aka Ryan Magic. Now, Ryan's story is incredibly inspirational and one that I feel a lot of business leaders out there can really relate to. Ryan achieved a high level of success in business in his early 20s, building his company to 7 figures of revenue and 25 staff members, serving hundreds and thousands of coaches across the world to build their businesses to high levels of service and success. And despite all of this external success, what was really inspiring and courageous about what Ryan did is that he was able to notice that on the outside, everything was looking great, but on the inside, he was feeling empty and unfulfilled. And he traced this back to his own personal journey with pain and trauma. And through identifying this, he was able to go on this path of inner healing, which has led now to his prioritization of fulfillment over success, not only in his own life, but also in how he serves his clients and the people around him. And I think whilst a lot of people can relate to their success being driven by their pain, it takes a lot of courage to choose a different path. And I think you're going to really enjoy this. The authenticity, the rawness, and the lessons in this podcast are very inspiring. So sit back and enjoy. And as always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to continue the conversation. Much love. Welcome to today's podcast episode. I'm here today with Ryan Magic, one of my best friends and an amazing leader in the space of embodied fulfillment and success. And super excited for this conversation today, brother.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah.
Welcome, guys.
Yeah. So the intention today is just to be as open and honest with our journeys and really share from the heart about what's been important to us on this intersection of topics of leadership and spirituality. And these are both words that have so much subjectivity around what they mean to each of us individually. And so there's really no right way to approach this, but I'm just excited to explore, your journey with this because you're someone who I respect on this path so deeply.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome, man. You're welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, man. So I thought the best place to start might be actually at the beginning, or at least kind of close to it, and especially on this journey of success and figuring out how to bring yourself into the world as especially sort of moving into the adult years. You're someone who sort of had this journey where, some people might be able to relate to going straight into business, but for a lot of people, they've kind of found entrepreneurship or they've found business success kind of on their own path. Whereas I feel like for you, you kind of had a slightly different path into it. I'd love to hear how that unfolded for you.
The business success.
Yeah, I guess coming out of school and to choosing that path of going straight into entrepreneurship.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was very, very insecure in my teenage years. I was very shy and very anxious, and I didn't really fit in school too much. But I kind of got to the end of high school with a fair few regrets because I was so introverted and just anxious in myself. I got to the end of high school and I was like, I wish I had kind of stepped into leadership more, and I wish that I had done more extracurricular activities, and I wish I had socialized more and put myself out there. But due to home circumstances and whatnot, I found that really difficult. But when I left school with that feeling of I could have approached that with a lot more courage, that put me on this, it inspired a challenge to myself to have this season of just doing what scared me a lot. And so I went out there and just said, anything that scares me, I'm just going to lean into, which was really scary just in itself. And so I did this a series of different things. I moved to a different state. I moved to Perth.
Yeah.
I did a public speaking course. I got a sales job. I started going clubbing and talking to girls.
Yeah. Terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a bunch of things. For a really shy, introverted guy, all of those things scared the crap out of me. And I did a male strip show as well, which was probably the intersection of everything that scared me. Like being in it was a full show for this woman's 30th, and that.
How old were you?
I was 18.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was super terrifying, and I did it, and I survived, and it was really liberating. And after that, I didn't do any more after that, but it was just an example of something that I did, and I was starting to realize, well, there's more possible in this life than I kind of thought was possible before, and that led me to starting my own business. When I was 18, just about to turn 19, I started cold calling tradespeople to sell them websites. And that was inspired by a friend of mine that was doing a similar business. And he's like, you can do this. And I was like, well, all right, let's give this a crack. And because I had motivation in me, I was just scared. And then I was like, when I was doing a bunch of fear challenges and whatnot, I was like, you know what, let's give this a crack. So I was cold calling all day, every day. And I actually learned from Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. Did his course, Straight Line Persuasion, and started learning how to close tradies on one call close. So I'd cold call. I got abused a lot. I had to learn how to deal with the rejection, but also find a way around it, and built this business up and started within a few months. I was making 6 figures a year in this business. Wow. I remember I had this
18, 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I had this 1 week where I made $6,000, and I was just so stoked. I was just like, what? Because not too long before this, when I was at the end of high school, I was working at for $8 an hour, working at a golf course.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is crazy. And I just got so ahead of myself. I was like, $6,000 in a week, 50 weeks in a year, I'm making $300,000 a year. And then I learned a fair bit about business from that. But that was kind of my intro into business initially. Yeah. Before I went off and started a bunch of different ones. And
awesome. Yeah. And so how did that evolve then over the next few years?
Okay, so then I got into that, and I was obsessed with how can I be as successful as possible? Because at this point I was still very driven by trying to make it. I was trying to go the direction opposite to my upbringing, where I felt like I remember rocking up to a private school in a broken down ambulance, old-fashioned ambulance that my dad was driving to school. We weren't very well off, and I got a scholarship to this private school, and kids were rocking Mercedes and all this sort of stuff. And I just didn't feel like I fit in, and I just wanted to kind of show myself in the world, hey, I can do something here. I can make something of my life. And so, I tried all these different businesses. The next kind of big business effort that I did, because I did lots of different things, but it was I had an idea to start a website builder, a software business that tradies could sign up to. Oh, no, not tradies. Personal trainers could sign up to, and then they could build their own website and book in clients through there and market through it and stuff. Create landing pages for different offers they could do. And I had this idea that if I got a joint venture set up with the Australian Institute of Fitness that had 15,000 new students a year, and I could set up with them and get them to promote me and integrate it into their course. If I was $50 a month or something like that, I would have at least a few $1 million a year coming in really quickly. And so I needed to get funding initially. I needed to build this website builder software, get coders and designers, and I was looking for investment for a while because it's going to cost $50, $100,000 to get this thing set up. And there was a bit of a message in this that was important, which was finally, after months of looking for investors, I secured investment. I secured these 3 guys that were going to go in together, kind of half business mentor me and pay for it all. And then they were going to take 50%. They were going to take 60%. I was going to take 40%. But they put all the money up. So, or it was 50 and then I'd take 50 and they'd split the 50. I can't remember exactly how it was, but something like that. And it was right before I was about to sign the contract. And I remember talking to a friend or talking to my partner. I was telling someone about it, and I was like, it's so good because I've got this set up. I found investors. It's literally all their cash. So no matter what happens, I'm sweet. And then I just kind of like, as I was saying that, I was witnessing myself and I was like, no matter what happens, I'm sweet. And I was like, I've got no skin in the game here at all.
Right.
I'm just leveraging these other people's money.
Yeah.
And then I realized, because I'd saved about 40-ish grand from like I ran that web business with tradies and stuff before that. And I was still 19, I think, at this time. And I was like, stuff this. Like, if I'm serious about this and I'm going to make it happen, then I got to go all in. So I actually didn't sign the contract and I put all my own money into it. And then I got web builders and stuff on equity within the company to help make it cheaper and save a bunch of money. I still put all my money into it so I could make it possible, because we probably needed 100 grand to launch. And then I set up this, like,
You remember how that felt? Like,
it felt empowering.
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt really empowering because it was scary to make the decision. But then when I made the decision, I was like, cool, now I'm leading my life.
Yeah.
I'm leading this and I'm going to make this happen.
Wow. Good. Just reflect on that, because, you know, as someone who came through the ranks as an accountant and really have all like the textbook understanding of business and everything, you know, that mitigating the downside risk is something that's so valued, right? And I still value it to this day.
Yeah.
And yet I can hear with what you're sharing a kind of broader understanding of the human psychology that was involved and the real motivation that it gave you to actually, you know, not only, I guess there might have been some fear involved in like, if this doesn't go right, then I need to make it work. But there's also this sense of like, no, this is all me. Like, I'm aligned to this 100%. I'm all in, and I'm going to throw all of myself towards making it work.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It's very empowering at that time. Yeah. So then I lent in, got the JV set up, not formally, but made the connection and was building the software. And as it got on and on, I was also running 4 other businesses, or in the process of starting 4 other businesses. So I had 5 businesses at once. And I remember Ricky and I used to catch up weekly. He was another one of our close friends who will probably be on this podcast, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And we used to catch up every Monday night and just do personal development and stuff. And at the start of every session, we'd take turns of introducing where we're at with our businesses. Yeah. And I think he had 1 or 2. And then I'd write up my 5. And one week, Ricky was just like, dude, no, stop. What the hell is happening here? You got 5 businesses. And then he like really put it to me. And I was like, fuck, you're right, man. I'm not really going all in on anything. And so actually, this was like months later, but I shut that business down. Like stopped that business. I had another business where I had equity in, and I sold my shares in that business. And then I had a few that I just let go. And I started focusing on my digital agency, and it just grew really quickly with that focus, the digital agency. And as that started to grow, I realized I wasn't passionate about that. And I started my actual passion project, which was Winning International, which is a business that I started when I was 21. And then I grew to 6 to 7 figures in 10 months, and then grew to a multi-million-dollar business. And I ran that for like about 5 years before I shut it down.
Yeah. How many people ended up being employed by that business?
25.
25, yeah. So just to give people context from a leadership perspective, you're you know, still in your early 20s, leading a team of 25, bringing in 7-figure sales figures, and all of this from, you know, a very quick growth journey as well. Yeah.
The one thing that I leveraged in that whole journey that made it possible was courage. That was like that was the one ingredient that I had. Sure, like I learned, like I was effective at business. I knew all the strategy around how to manage and culture and marketing and sales and finance. Like I learned and adopted those strategies over time, but the whole thing was initiated through courage. So when I started that business, like similar to going all in on that, it was called PT Sites, that web builder for personal trainers. Like when I started this business, I hired a $50,000 mentor. And at that point, it cost me a lot of money to shut down my web agency to start this business, which was helping coaches grow their business. So I was like, I'm good at marketing, I'm good at sales. How could I make a difference with that? Well, what if I teach life coaches who help people grow their businesses? That could be a way that I can make a difference. And so launched that and started that. But I launched it by investing in a $50,000 mentor, which burnt all my cash. I shut down my digital agency, which burnt all my cash. And then I was there with no money in my account, like a few $100s or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had $1,000 coming out of my account each week.
Yeah.
So to pay my mentor.
Yeah.
This $50,000 program, $1,000 a week. So, and the way that I did it, because at that point I was still terrified of public speaking. I was good at networking. And so I said to myself, I'm going to run a seminar every single week until I get good at it. That was my dream, to be a speaker. And that's what initiated that business, stepping into my dream path. And that energy of courage at every milestone of growth was always courage that created some kind of growth. So initially running the seminars was what got me my first 50 clients in the first 10 weeks.
Yep.
That broke me through, and I was like, holy crap, my dream's happening and it's possible. But it was because I ran a seminar every single week, which terrified me. Like, I was terrified. There was one time when I spoke, and then at the end, I was so sick from the adrenaline and everything like that. I ran to the toilet. I vomited in the toilet.
Yeah, wow.
It was so far past my capacity of comfort at that stage. I wasn't even posting on Facebook. I was too scared. Like, a post on Facebook was terrifying for me. So to run a seminar was like 100 steps faster. So much courage required, but it paid off. Because when we put ourselves outside our comfort zone, we become the person needed instantly to hold that next level of growth. That whatever we're stepping into, we demand the resources and the version of us to hold that next level. It's like it forces us into that next version of ourselves.
Almost hearing how a lobster grows, right? Like, they actually have to step out of their shell that they're in, and for a moment or for a short period of time, they're actually completely vulnerable to outside predators and things they've got in their shell. But the only way they're actually going to grow bigger than their existing version is to do that, because now their new shell can form at their new larger size as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that.
Yeah. That's just what's coming up for me.
It's an animal metaphor. The animal spirit.
Of course. Thanks for sharing that. That's a super powerful journey. And it can really feel like that, that fire that you had there to really just make that success happen. And it's awesome to get to firsthand sort of witness and experience that actually unfolding. And I've also heard you share kind of one of your beliefs is that everything has equal benefits and drawbacks, right? And have a lot of clear benefits that we can learn a lot from. And I'd love if you wanted to share kind of where that journey took you and how that kind of has unfolded since.
Yeah, certainly. So the benefit of that journey was I was now a successful person in society.
Yeah.
I was young as well. I think I was 22 when I first made my first million in business. So I'm young, got this real cool car. I had money to spend on a nice place.
Yeah. You wrote a book. You had and still have an amazing podcast. All these things that people would label as success and have elements of that.
Sure. Exactly. I was leading a team every day, training them. So if there's money, sex, and power as those big ego drives, it's these things were being met now. So I was a powerful man. I was feeling confident in myself because of the success that I'd created. So it gave me more confidence with women. And I had some fame. I had 100,000 followers on Facebook. So it's now I've got all these people walking at me, looking up to me, and I had money. I was making the equivalent of a full-time salary every week. I remember calling my mum, who kicked me out of home for wanting to be an entrepreneur, and saying, "Mum, I made it. You can love me now." And didn't get a very good response.
Yeah.
I'm making a salary every week, full-time salary. I'm okay. And, so you didn't have to worry about me. But what happened was, as I started to build more and more externally, and I started to get more and more results, what started off, it was all part of my journey and it was all really aligned. But I remember being really jealous / inspired or confused by people that had what I used to label grounded confidence. I would meet certain people that didn't have it, because I would walk into a room trying to prove myself. I'd walk into a room just networking effectively. So I would seed all these stories of things that I had, accomplishments that I'd done. Always ask people, like, what do you do? How's it going? Oh yeah. How many staff do you have? Like, just such immature things that were all coming from a place of trying to prove myself. And I didn't realize that I was trying to prove myself.
Sure.
I didn't realize I would build this thing up because it was cloaked in service. I was running a business that helped coaches. I donated over $100,000 to charity too, which stroked my ego massively. And it was like, I'm doing so good. I'm helping people. Got all these young entrepreneurs that are inspired by me. But my hidden underlying belief was that I'm better than the average person and other people are worse than me. I used to be worse before I became successful. Now I'm better. And I want to help people that are worse so they can be better, because people deserve to be better. So it was like innocent in nature. It was ignorant, but it was very much coming from a place of huge judgment of myself, where I had this conditional confidence. So I was always like, teach me, like I'd meet someone that had grounded confidence. I want to learn grounded confidence. Teach it to me, kind of thing. Like, I've learned everything else. I learned how to build a sales team. I learned how to make money and market online, and teach me grounded confidence. And I just didn't understand it. I didn't understand how someone that could have so much less than me externally could feel so much more comfortable in themselves internally. And that was always just something that stayed in the side of my mind. And then I manifested, through driving from this place of insecurity, I manifested hardship in business. I manifested a lot of karmic consequences from attempting to grow too fast. I had an executive that was doing some shady stuff in the business that caused almost $1 million in damages in the business. I started to get adrenal fatigue. And simultaneously to this, I'd done a meditation course to try to master spirituality. Like, I mastered everything else. Now I'm going to master spirituality. I'm going to master my energy, like coming from a massive place of ego. So what happened was, grounded confidence seed, started meditating, business hardship, and the dots just, all the paths start to lead to this fork in the road moment, where I was doing some sessions with my meditation teacher, and she challenged me to go to Bali, or not to go to Bali, just have a holiday for a week. And it was maybe August at the time, and I was like, end of the year, I could do that. It's just like in my head, because I didn't like holidays. I didn't want a holiday because I wanted to beat everyone. I was like, if I go away for 2 days, who's out there that's like not going away? They're going to beat me. I'm not going to let anyone beat me. I'm going to beat everyone. I'm going to get to the end of my life. I'm going to have a net worth of $10 billion. I'm going to crush everybody. That was my perspective. And that was a really hard thing to do, but I was committed to it. So I was like,
so it was this competitiveness, but like being driven by insecurity.
And so,
which I think a lot of people can relate to, including myself, right? It's like all of the things you're saying, I think I just want to take a moment to acknowledge, like, which, being close friends with you, a lot of this just feels so natural and organic in what you share. But just, I think for a lot of people, hearing your level of self-awareness, and in a way that might come across as self-criticism almost for a past version of yourself, really acknowledging that all you're saying here is that you're human, right? And like, you had human tendencies that were driving you to create some amazing things in your life, but simultaneously have longer term consequences that weren't actually healthy for what you wanted in your life.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for reflecting that back. So built this big thing, lots of external results. Things are starting to, without me being aware yet, reach this fork in the road moment. And so, meditation teacher, go away for a week. And I was like, cool, 4 months time, I'll be able to squeeze a week in over Christmas. And she was like, no way. I would say now. You go away now. And I was like, now? I've got a team to manage, I've got stuff to do. There's no way this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden there was a small part of me, which I think was my spirit or my heart, that was kind of like, this actually could be pretty nice. This would be a cool experience. Yeah. Next day I'm in Bali for a week. And my only homework task was do nothing.
Okay.
And I was like,
wow.
Do nothing, no business work, nothing. And I could meditate or I could do yoga, some stuff. So I did a bit of that. I squeezed some things in. And a few days in, I moved from Canggu to Ubud. And then I'm just doing some random journaling in the car. I'm in a taxi. And out of nowhere, I just start feeling this huge pain build up in me. And I just start crying. I just keep crying and crying and crying. And I couldn't stop myself from crying. I had to say to the taxi driver, I don't know what's going on. I was so confused. And I cried for 3 days straight. Because what I realized at that time is I'd never given myself permission to experience joy in life. Wow. I'd never given myself that permission. And yeah, it hurt. It hurt really badly because it was a complete blind spot. I was like, how could I go so long? How could I be working? I was doing so many things. And I was so hyper-vigilant. I was so committed to my path, to make it, to be this somebody, to prove myself, that I couldn't even see that I wasn't giving myself permission for joy in life.
Yeah.
And it just rocked me to my core, and it shifted a lot. And not too long after that, because I realized that this whole business thing, this whole thing is a facade.
Yeah.
I built this whole thing up to try to show everyone how good I am, because I felt so unlovable underneath.
Yeah.
And I made one of the most courageous decisions I've ever made in my life, which was to shut that business down, to shut it down, because I wanted to see if I could learn to love myself for who I was as a person, not for my outside accomplishments, not the identity of being this young, up-and-coming, successful entrepreneur who's got all this stuff and has got all these accomplishments. And that was like 6 and a bit years ago.
Yeah.
And the last 6.5 years, it's like the pendulum that swung so, I was driven so deeply by fear and so deeply by insecurity. That meant there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of insecurity there.
Yeah.
And sure, I did my best with what I knew, but there was a lot, and there still is some, but as I've worked on this a lot, but there was so much pain and emotion and grief and insecurity and trauma and wounding that was underneath the facade and the mask that I wore and used to grow this business.
Yeah, I hear that, man. And I remember we met at a spiritual retreat. I think it was April 2021, and connected, and I really thought you were a great guy, and really wanted to get to know you more. And then just through life, you were over in the States, and we ended up actually getting a chance to drop in a bit more, maybe March 2022. So pretty much a year after getting to hang out for the first time, and no judgment on where you were, but the amount of growth in you as a man, as a human being, on a spiritual, emotional level, was just so marked. It was so clear that that level of intentionality of you just wanting to build that grounded confidence, right? And really be, I don't like using terms like better and worse, but just the simplicity, be your best self, right?
Yeah.
It was so clear that this was a path for you, and it was inspiring to see.
Thank you, Paddy. Thank you. I'm so grateful that we met 18 months ago. Again, dropped in, because that's wild to think, because we have such a deep connection now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that it originated really 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So what have been some of the main paths that have really helped you on this path, this journey?
So I'd just like to touch on first, if it's cool,
yeah, go for
it. That the reason that I wanted to make the switch of trying to prove myself externally to trying to build some self-love and self-worth internally was because I'm just here trying to live my best life.
Yeah.
That's all I've ever wanted. And I thought that was going to come from like just winning. I win. My business was called Winning International. It was winning sites before that, and then it was like Winning International.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to live my best life, and I thought success was going to be the way that I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once awareness struck, and I'm taking it that those that are listening to this have had some aspect of themselves wake up out of the hypnosis that we get in as human beings, to clue onto the fact that there's something more here than just driving and adhering or winning by the rule book of what society tells us is going to give us our best life. Because what happens was, when I was the most successful, I actually felt the most alone. When I was the most successful, I realized that I was least fulfilled. And that really was, got me to start to shift, because I know that those that are, everyone's doing the best that they can. But I take it that based on you and the audience that you would attract, there's a lot of people that prioritize doing their best. Leadership. I want to go out there and they're making things happen. They're willing to push the edge. And you're willing to do that. I'm willing to do that. They're willing to do that. We're all doing our best. The interesting thing about this path, though, is that I believe that there's something far more precious than success that we can do well at. And that's what made me create the shift. And I'm just going to go into that, if that's cool.
Yeah.
I believe that the purpose of life is fulfillment. We're here, and because the way that I see this, and now as someone that's somewhat a spiritual teacher or teaches people about this kind of wisdom based on learning about it for ages and needing it myself, that the universe guides us as human beings in two separate seasons of life. We have a human season, which is when that fear aspect of our mind drives the show. That was me. I was scared that I wasn't enough. I was scared that I wasn't a somebody. I was scared that I wasn't going to be loved. I was scared that I wasn't going to be successful enough, that I was going to die with regrets, that my parents wouldn't love me, that people wouldn't love me, that I wasn't good enough. And so I wouldn't have said that I was scared. But no one could have convinced me or got me to admit that I was scared about anything.
Sure. Yeah.
But I was scared about everything. And so that part of my mind...
Is there a different word that you would have identified with back in those days? Like if someone had have used a different word to describe that fear, that might have you might have been able to pause and go, oh yeah, I guess I can kind of identify that myself and be open to exploring that a bit more. No, it was just like straight up.
No way. It was complete suppression.
Yeah.
And because that aspect of our consciousness or mind is so afraid, there's masks that are built up around it. And my masks were so strong, my shielding was so thick that it was just a complete hypnosis.
Yeah. And
this is what like Carl Jung talks about when he says living below the line, and Tara Brach says living in trance, and Eckhart Tolle also refers to it as somewhat as a hypnosis.
Sure, yeah.
That we're just kind of like wearing a mask, but not aware that we're wearing that mask. Yeah. So I really see that the first half of our life, not at the midpoint, but the first season of our journey is very much driven from fear.
Okay.
And what happens is the universe guides us and life guides us, because who created all this?
Yeah.
Like, let's just get a little bit more real than just talking about the formalities. Like, no one really knows everything that's going on here.
Yeah, even science, right? Like, the accepted definition that, like, science has given us is that at one point, was it like 13.8 billion years ago, every single thing that exists and has ever existed and ever will exist was in a point smaller than a pinhead. And before that, we don't know. And just accept that, and everything else makes sense.
Yeah.
I can't accept that.
Yeah. So what happens is we're a human being, we have human, and we have being. And what happens is, in my perspective, is life continues to lead us closer to the point where being a human, which is driven by fear, it's a lot more materially orientated, a lot more results and success orientated, continues to lead us to this point where we hit a point of pain that is so deep that we just somehow question everything, and it snaps us out of the hypnosis. And you don't have to look too far to see how this happens as a phenomenon with people that are most successful. If you look at most successful entrepreneurs do a bunch of cocaine. You've got 78% of NFL players end up broke, and up to 80% of elite athletes end up divorced. You've got most celebrities end up losing their mind and getting going on benders and getting addicted to substances and narcotics and have mental breakdowns. Why is it at that point? Why aren't they having a breakdown on the journey? Well, on the journey, they're still driven by this idea that they'll arrive and it's going to be phenomenal. They're going to reach this utopian point of enlightenment and life's going to be so good and I'm going to get everything I want and it's going to be amazing. But then when they get there and they inevitably realize that it's not, it's the same as what it was before. It's always the same. AKA, our fulfillment in life has nothing to do with what's going on externally. It's only when they have everything and then experience the pain that usually they implode. And people will go one of two directions. They'll either try to escape the situation through massive distraction, substance abuse, alcoholism, some kind of massive sedation. They'll try to escape it through suicide, or they'll have a shift and start to prioritize their experience in life, not the external results of what life gives them. And everyone will inevitably hit this point. But for those that are on here that are driven, if they haven't already hit it, you'll hit it through most likely getting everything you want because you're so awesome and willing and open and driven that you'll get it and then realize there's more to this. 100%. Yeah. And then we shift from being externally driven to being internally driven. And we prioritize our experience. And that's a very powerful place to be. But that's just to set a foundation for whatever we talk about next. Yeah. Fulfillment, in my opinion, is the purpose of life. That's the quality of our experience. And so many of us are just looking outside, completely oblivious to our experience. Yeah. Still addicted to the externals and distracting ourselves and having a terrible experience, but just doing it anyway. Sure. You know, you could be in the Maldives with your partner, having an argument, and because you're driven by fear and a bit egoic, it's like, no, you did this wrong, it isn't, you're having all this suffering. And there could be someone that's got no money that's having a beautiful time. You just got to look in Africa and see the starving kids, and we're just really ignorantly trying to save them with money when they've got the gift that we need 100%. In the essence of their experience.
Yeah, I had a similar experience with having this dichotomy of being an accountant at one stage where I was living overseas and traveling through developing countries and meeting families in places like Guatemala that had nothing, but there was so much just joy and love radiating through their lives. And then getting on the phone to a millionaire who was full of challenges and pain, and not to say they didn't also have a lot of beauty in their life, but it was just such a clear reflection that, as you said, that external success and the internal fulfillment were two separate things. Yeah,
such a cool contrast.
Yeah,
what a beautiful gift that is. So if you have that experience, a lot of people see that and witness that and tell that story. So if I was to say to a successful person that had that experience, cool, you should move there with them. Get rid of everything if they're so happy and you're so admirable of it. Yeah. If I was to say that, hey, cool, I've actually arranged for this to happen and it's going to ship you over to Guatemala, they were going to freak out. even though they can see that they're so much happier,
Totally.
but they'd still go into freak out.
Totally.
The reason they go into freak out is because of the level of attachment that they have to their current reality, to their dreams and hopes, because they're still under the false illusion that it's going to give them something in the way of an experience. But it's not. But they're still attached to that. And attachment is rooted in fear. I need to get this. If not, I'm screwed. And I'm going to be unsafe. And it's going to be really, really bad. It's not going to be, but that's how you can challenge people based on saying, cool, let's just get rid of the attachment. Shut down your business then. You know? And they'd be like, well, what? Because for me, at the point before I shut down my business, at various other times where I had that challenge by people that were into spirituality.
Sure.
I had my meditation teacher once float the idea of like, well, who would you be without your business? And instantly my whole body started to get hot, and I was like, I'd be dead without that. There's no fucking way on hell am I going to give up on my dream of getting to that point. Zero, no chance. Boom, blocked it out. That's the mask.
Yeah.
When you're like, what else other reason could there be, or wording that might have opened me up? Zero.
Sure.
Like,
do you feel like that's the path that everyone needs to take in those circumstances, or are there ways to kind of like still go on the journey of deepening into fulfillment without giving it all up, without like cutting the cord of attachment in that direct way? Is there another path, or is that the only
yeah, there's heaps of different paths. I feel like it's all discernible based on the person that's living it. But I do feel those that are most intense will end up doing something really extreme. And that's probably a lot of the listeners. If they're like leaders and executives and CEOs and entrepreneurs, like they're usually pretty extreme. So you'd be very, very surprised if they don't already have a story like this, where they've done something extreme because they like to do things in extreme ways, which is me as well. But that's not the only way. There can be gradual. That's the more emotionally mature and spiritually evolved way to do things is more subtly.
Sure.
So that can just look like letting go and listening to what's going to create the most beautiful experience. Because that's a whole different lens through which to view life.
Yeah.
Internal, I'm going to prioritize my internal experience, or I'm going to prioritize my external attachments.
Yeah.
If someone is like, naturally, all the spiritual growth is going to be there just when they shift that intention.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm going to prioritize my internal experience. And then they go to do something that they used to do for external attachment, and then it's not going to feel so good. And then they're going to be put in a situation where they're aware that a change needs to happen, that they can feel internally, or there's a change that needs to happen here, and then they'll wrestle with that for a few months until they make it, or they might make it soon, and then something else they'll realize was misaligned. And there's this shedding of karmic layers.
Okay.
The reason it took me, there's so much that needed to be undone, and it was so chaotic with the change, was because I didn't listen for so long to what my internal, my heart, my spirit, my internal compass that was built in love. Because I was so driven by fear, I had no space to be aware of what love was guiding me to.
Yeah.
So I was just like blocking my ears and like, la, 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 and just steamrolling.
Sure.
And then leaving all this destruction and causing a huge, like, it's just like trying to change a speedboat around versus trying to change a cruise ship around.
Yeah.
You know, I built a cruise ship in ignorance, and it took freaking ages to turn it around.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying though that you know, like some people might see that moment in the car of the tears coming through. It was almost like the iceberg, right, for the cruise ship to get into. What it almost sounds like to me is that, you know, that was something that you're so grateful for, right? Like it was almost the biggest blessing that you could possibly receive, is that moment of deep grief and pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like a really beautiful time to introduce head and heart as a concept, because I believe that we have these two minds, or I call it aspects of our consciousness, that are driven by very different goals. So we have our head, which is our survival brain, it's our ego. And like from a scientific or anatomical perspective, it's our amygdala, which is that fear center of our brain. And then we have our heart, which desires fulfillment. desires growth and love, and it is the prefrontal cortex. And we have these two aspects that we can be driven from in any moment. We can fly into one and then be oblivious of the other. We can be in the opposite one and oblivious of the other. And so what happens is we will be in different moments fly back into fear. And even as we evolve spiritually, like I still have moments if I'm in my fear consciousness, I can be super overwhelmed.
Sure.
And
it's not a full like black or white, like it's one or the other, right? It's kind of like there's it's a maybe like a spectrum where you can be kind of somewhere in the middle at times, or have a little bit of both. But maybe there's a goal or a journey of like getting more in our hearts, or more have that kind of energy of being aligned with our soul's purpose and things like that. So,
yeah, I do feel like we can be pretty much, because as soon as the head takes control of the steering wheel, whatever's going on is going to be flavored through the lens of fear. So it's kind of just like a really easy metaphor for this is like a relationship. If you're in an argument, then we know that we love the person. We know that what we care about most is having a really beautiful connection with them. Yeah, that we want to have an awesome time with them. But that goes out the window. We forget about that if we're feeling really triggered and activated, aka we're in our amygdala. So that kind of takes over. The amygdala is pretty pervasive. The heart, that the prefrontal cortex, is still there. It sits there in the background patiently. It's a lot more subtle. And the head is a lot more violent and volatile. And when that switches on, it kind of like flavors our whole experience.
Okay. So, and how can this play out for people in like their, professional space, in business, or in like leading a team, or, like just, I guess if people are in that space, that most likely they've got a bit of a mission that they're connected to, where they're trying to make the world a better place, whatever it happens to be. How can this concept support that?
Yeah, good question, man. And this is what's really beautiful about being aware of spirituality. It means that what we're doing outside is kind of pre-gifted to us, because where you are is perfect. Yeah. If it wasn't the case, you wouldn't be there. It's like God didn't screw up and just be like, whoops, slept in on that person, forgot to monitor their progress, and they are in some terrible position. I'm embarrassed about that person. Like, they're exactly where they need to be. So if an executive's there and they get into some kind of awakening experience where they're starting to prioritize more of their experience and they care more about fulfillment, they don't have to leave the job to have an amazing experience. Sure. They need to become aware of their internal world and start to play with that. And so if someone's in a role where they're managing people or leading people, their perceptivity of their own internal world is going to allow them to build like ridiculously more deeply trusting connection and relationships in a corporate setting, in a business setting, with stakeholders, prospects, any other stakeholder.
So going back to like if I'm in one of these roles where like I've got very tangible outcomes and metrics that are measured by my performance. It might be sales, it might be profitability, it might be like staff turnover, anything like this. All of that actually has a human element. Like all of that is a relationship of some form. And even if it's not like really obvious, like somewhere behind the technology or the products, or like there are humans involved, right? And so like being able to have greater mastery of our own experience and have a greater sense of fulfillment inside of ourselves can make us someone more likable or enjoyable to interact with as well. Is that kind of what you're sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is when we're in our amygdala, if we're in this head hypnosis trance situation where we're driven by fear and we're in our role to try to make something of ourselves, we don't have presence. And if we don't have presence, when we're around other people, we've got a predefined objective we're trying to hit. and we can't be there with someone else, tuning into what they're feeling. So we don't even know what we're feeling. We're robotically going about our own KPIs, desperately trying to hit things. So we're not there to be able to actually care about the other human that's across from us. And if we can slip into greater presence with them, you're phenomenal at this, by the way. We know this to be true. Paddy's the master of this, which is why you were a great leader.
Yeah, thank you. And I can totally do so many times where I've done the opposite, right? And it's like this sense of I want something so bad that like you're the person I'm dealing with, like it's hard to admit this, but it was like a pawn in me achieving that objective. And often that person wanted nothing to do with me achieving that objective. So versus like actually being present with them, listening to them, hearing what they want to achieve, and then finding a win-win where everyone gets to feel amazing with the outcome as well. Very different ways to approach something.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we're in that, when we're in our head, we're in head hypnosis, we are attempting to feel safe because we're feeling unsafe, we're in fear, we're scared, we're trying to achieve something because we're not okay inside. So we're very reactive to try to, I'm not feeling okay, I need to be doing well in my job, this role needs to be well, doing good, need to be hitting my KPIs, blah, blah, blah. And the way that we seek to remedy that feeling of not being okay is through control. Makes sense. So if someone's in a leadership position, the way that someone can get control over their situation with other people could be by being pleasing, just saying everything that other people need. Like maybe they're a more, like I'm just going to make everyone happy kind of leader. And that, it breaks trust because it's not authentic. Just the same as someone being really controlling and like autocratic and direct also is coming from a place of control. So that control causes people to behave in ways that don't come from a place of desire for connection, don't come from a place of truth, because when we're trying to control, we need to get the result at all costs. What happens is people will go against their values to meet their needs. And when someone's feeling unsafe, their need for safety is not being met. So if someone's about to be tortured, they'll lie. I would lie. I don't want to get tortured. I'd do anything I can to get out of that situation to protect myself. And as intense as that scenario is, our amygdala is going off in that scenario. If we're at work and we're driven by these KPIs, our amygdala is also going off. So our authenticity, our desire to meet the value for being someone that cares about other people and wants to be there for them and wants to be of service, the integrity gets put way down the bottom. Whereas if someone's connected to their heart and they're feeling safe, they're regulated, then they can speak truth. And that leader is going to be more trusted. That doesn't necessarily just mean I want to make that person feel good. It's like I care about that person, so I'm going to say, hey, I love you. What's going on for you right now? Because you've got to hit your KPI. Like, we know this, but I just want, like, what's going on? I can tell you're not being yourself. And there's a genuine interest. There's a presence. Because I'm here as the leader in my role to have an awesome inner experience, which means I want to challenge myself, but I also want to enjoy my connection with this person. I care about being present because that means my experience is really awesome. I'm here. I'm fully here for this. And that provides the best long-term results.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Yeah. Beautiful. This is a topic that, like, we could totally do like a 4 or 5 hour Joe Rogan experience style podcast right now and go deep on a bunch of things. But I do want to like make sure that I want to hear the rest of your story as well. I want to hear like kind of how that's actually now, like everything you've shared around like these philosophies and I know it's the tip of the iceberg, but like what we have heard has influenced your journey because, you know, I've got to meet you in this chapter of your life and I love the man that I've got to meet. And like, so I get the sense that all of that, you know, the fire and the drive that you had that led you into that has now taken a different flavor, right? And you've you know, that's still on the path, but you've really built a life for yourself where that fulfillment is priority number one. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's a really great point to bring out that fuel that used to drive me has changed flavor.
Yeah.
Because that's a really big, there's a big transition that happens when we get into this path. We become aware of the fact that we're driven from trying to prove ourselves or from fear. So then all of a sudden it becomes intolerable to do the same things. So if there's any leaders here that are starting to get more connected to spirit, you're finding yourself going, what the hell am I even in this job for? Why am I here? Because things that are not really aligned become intolerable and irrelevant, and we want to shift them. So oftentimes it gets really confusing because everything that was giving us drive, which was fear, is now gone. We can't just sit there in our own sanity and be like, I'm not enough, so I need to work extra hard. It's like, actually, I'm full. I've matured emotionally now. And I know that it's not true that if I don't hit this KPI, I'm a loser.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe before, the fear of, I've got to get everything perfect, or if not, I'm a nobody and I'm never going to hit my goals and everything's going to crumble. That caused the person to stay late for an extra few hours because they were driven from fear. And that's a very, very potent driver. So usually what happens is there's a bit of a void experience where someone's drive has to move from fear to love. And that void thing is that we're now sitting in between, because we still have our head and our heart that can come online at any moment. The amygdala doesn't just like get surgically removed because we've gotten into spirituality. So we still get scared and we go, oh my gosh, I'm making these changes. I'm not as driven. What's going on? And then just drive double back down. The amygdala comes back online and goes back because we got 1 foot in this and 1 foot in this. So, but what happens here is that the universe actually, it calls us into deep meaning and fulfillment with our experiences. So we can find motivation again, but it ain't going to be for anything that appeases your fear mind. So the things before, like if you're like, why am I not motivated about these things I used to be motivated? You're probably going to have to shift, not necessarily get out of that job, but you're going to have to find a new approach to the same situation. Right? Because now it's intolerable to keep showing up in the same way. It's not that you're not a motivated person. It's that you're smart enough now to go, why the hell would I put myself through this for something that's not even that meaningful? I need to create meaning here because I'm only going to find inspiration within me if I actually devote myself to something that's real, like a full yes to me. Because I'm not going to waste my time on this planet. I know that I'm full for who I am. So why would I show up to a place where I don't get respected with people that don't care about their job for a mission I don't believe in? That's not going to work anymore. And that doesn't mean quit, go. There's going to be some transition to something new, which could be found within the same role, could be found within the same business.
Could be someone like choosing to also help out the corporate social responsibility initiatives of the company as well, or doing some like bringing in like some kind of extra thing that people can like get around in the lunch breaks or that kind of thing. Many different ways to achieve the same outcome. The real difficult thing with it is because you still have that mind online and most of our environment and society is fueled by fear, it's very difficult to feel and remain 100% feel like you're making healthy decisions. Because like if you're like, I care about my experience, number one, and then everyone else is like, results matter, number one. I'm staying back. You think I like this job? I'm staying back. I'm doing it. Well, you should be doing it. And you're there going, oh my gosh, am I throwing everything away? And am I being ridiculous right now? Because no one else is approving and on board with that. So the thing that you hear time and time again is that you become like the people you surround yourself with. For me, it's been like one of the biggest, the Pareto principle, the 80-20, like what I get 80% of my results and 20% of actions. Surrounding myself with people I want to be like is like one of the easiest, hardest changes, but like also biggest impact changes for sure.
So we really have to learn to embrace our new value set, and that takes a little bit of time. that means that there's going to be some shifting, but your mind's not going to be completely on board with it's going to relapse back and go into overwhelm all of a sudden and be like, what the hell are you doing? You used to hit these KPIs and be driving like crazy. You got all these promotions, and now look at you. You're just like wasting your time and plodding around and caring about corporate social responsibility, and you've wasted all this time. And you're gonna have to learn to find true self-worth by caring so much about yourself and having so much love for yourself that you're willing to prioritize what gives you a beautiful, aligned, most meaningful experience, which means that you don't get all of what you had before. You're substituting that for a new, more fulfilling reality. But the really cool thing is once that transition has been made, once you've gotten through that void of feeling like in between two worlds, and you're doing what's really meaningful, which is really difficult to get to, then you can start to build in that. Then you can start to grow that. Then that will actually bear more fruits than what your old thing ever could and would have, because it was never based in love. And it's only something will only grow to the extent that you have that like deep, meaningful love with. It'll blossom in the most sustainable and beautiful way. But most people find it very difficult to get to the other side of that because so much needs to be let go of. So every time you're struggling for motivation and why is this not working? Why can't I get myself to do this? It's giving you feedback that there's a misalignment there. Yeah, that doesn't mean there's not times where you have to lean in and work hard, but it'll feel expansive. You'll still know as a feeling in your body, in your heart. It's a knowing. I know this is my path, and I'm willing to do hard shit to get there. Very different feeling to like, why can't I be like I used to be like? Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, like on this journey now, so you've now sort of moved into actually what sounds like it's coming from your heart. It's your version of this journey of letting go of that old business and going on your own spiritual journey personally, and now bringing that in professionally. Like, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, me, all the topics that I'm talking about right now, I perceive to be the most meaningful things that I could do, which is help people live with fulfillment.
Yeah. So how does that, like, what does your business life look like now that this is sort of really landed for you?
Yeah, sure. I would say, just to give some context of where I am on that transition, I would say I'm in the latter stages of transitioning into the new flow. Like I still notice myself with fears and feeling like I could just go and teach what I used to teach and make money really quickly, and all of a sudden I could be a somebody really quickly. I might go back into my ego and it's scared about embracing this new path. Having said that, like I have a new path and I'm on my new path and it's full of fulfillment. I find fulfillment in so many different areas. But now I teach people a integrated approach to living their most fulfilled, meaningful, purpose-driven life. And teach people how to live with fulfillment. And my kind of like business flow at the moment is like pretty haphazard. I probably, when I was at the peak of my 100-hour weeks business drive, I probably made like between $4 and $5 million revenue a year and under $1 million profit a year. And I was terrible with my money. So like I would blow everything.
Interesting as well. It's a quick distinction to make because like it's so easy to get lured in by these big metrics like the top line, the sales, and then a lot of business people know that we need to focus on the bottom line, the profit. But what we often forget is like how are we actually using that in our own life? It's like if we're quote unquote blowing it like on things that don't actually mean anything to us, well then is it even worth anything? Versus someone who's earning minimum wage, but actually every dollar they spend is something that's truly making them happy. Like, I know which one I'd actually enjoy more, even if I'd probably still struggle to choose that. It's still a big part of me. It's like, oh no, the shiny big numbers, like that's very, very alluring. But this conversation highlighted why that wouldn't be a fulfilling path.
Well, at the moment, my living expenses are about $50,000 a year. That's roughly what my living expenses are.
Mm.
So I don't need a huge amount. I probably make between 200,000 and 300,000 a year at the moment, profit. And I work whenever I want to work. Most of the, like, I have set things that I do, like coaching sessions, and I have workshops in the calendar. I do speaking, like I'm working today. This is work technically.
Yeah.
Like we'll spend 90 minutes here or whatever. It's a Sunday, beautiful day, and loving this is what I love to do.
Yeah.
So it's like it amplifies my inner experience. Yeah. This makes my life a better experience, if you will. Yeah. And then I choose the things that light me up the most. So I probably work, let's say, like 30 hours a week if I had to guess. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of creative work within that. But I focus a lot of time, especially at the moment. I'm going through a little season of confronting things that I've been running from my whole life in the way of feelings, in relationship. Things that are triggered by my relationship that were causally created as a child, having some really painful experiences with two parents going through a lot of their own stuff. So I prioritize a lot of time for that. Yeah. And then if I want to have some nice time in the sun, I'll just do that on any day. I'll just take a Tuesday off, one Monday off, a Wednesday off. My calendar looks like next week I go to a 5-day retreat that I'm facilitating at. So it'll be like half facilitation, half participation in Gold Coast hinterlands. And then I get back for a day and then we go to Menergy here, which is a men's retreat here, which I'm speaking at and will participate at. Be awesome food, really cool experiences in nature. We'll have the best time. And then I'm being flown to Vanuatu, to do a speaking engagement for a day, run a day workshop with a group of people, which is like this luxury villa. And then I extended my stay there for like 5 days. So I'll just be chilling in Vanuatu, and I plan on like doing more inner practices, and I might do some writing and some creative stuff. Yeah. And then I'll get back and I'll probably hustle down for 3 or 4 days and make some sales and get more people to my workshop and stuff. Yeah. And then I'll probably have a few days off, and then I'll run a workshop, and then I'm going to New Zealand not too long after that. Then I'm going to Malaysia. So, there's a lot of freaking awesome experiences in there, and I'll make plenty of like more than enough money. My expenses are $50,000 a year. Yeah. I have an investment property that gives me $80,000 profit a year. Mm-hmm. One investment property that has really good positive yields for me. So I could technically just live off that. Yeah, and that's more than what I need. Yeah, I just work for joy.
Yeah, I'm really hearing that distinction out of like you're definitely working in there, but it's all intrinsically motivated work. But like actually, you could technically be retired, but you'd still want to do this. This is still like stuff that gets you up in the morning, excited to get into your day, versus previously like having to push yourself, crack the whip to get things done, to hit the metrics that society deems success, that were causing you to feel that in pain. Yeah. It's such a big difference.
And there's a really subtle nuance with me that's like a real specific, vulnerable share with me, is that just with my experience and my expertise, I can make a lot of money really quickly business coaching people. So like last year I made $100,000 in a week, and I can do that relatively easily with business coaching being the thing. And it still gives me a lot of joy. And I enjoy it a lot, but it's more my zone of excellence, not my zone of genius. So that's sitting there as my ego's kind of temptation that's always there. That's like, dude, you could be making way more money than this if you just quickly channeled into this. And it's kind of like what my foot still energetically touching in that old place that what I used to do, and not fully opening up and embracing my new path. Sure. So I kind of like wrestle between that, because even though I already make more money than I need to do everything that I want to do in my life, my head's still tricking me with these random things. You could easily make more. I don't even need any more money. I've already got more money than I need. But it's like, but you can make $1 million really quickly doing this. And it's like, I don't even need more money. Yeah. Why the freaking hell?
I can hear my own safety strategies going, but you can invest that and then you can have a safety net. And
exactly.
But my experience of life would be worse, so why would I do it?
Yeah.
And, it's a beautiful distinction, man. I really honor you for like choosing to go down that path, but also having that self-awareness to be able to catch the
subtle, sneaky ways that the ego can come in and try and pull us back to that old way of being. Yeah. I think something we can all relate to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I had a. Is there anything?
Go for it. Cool.
Because I was very fortunate to be in a entrepreneurs club that you needed a roughly $1.5 million. You need to be making that as a minimum to be able to join. And so I found myself in this group with 7 other men making pretty much all making over 8 figures a year, and some over $100 million a year. And I was catching up with these dudes every month. And I got to see and hear their biggest inner struggles, business struggles, if something was happening in their relationship, if someone was suing them, just all sorts of crazy stuff that was going on. And one trend that I noticed with all these people that I consider really close friends now is that they all struggle to prioritize doing what they actually wanted to do in their already wildly successful businesses. And they all had like more than enough money to retire for the rest of their lives. Like some people, multiple tens of millions of dollars in their bank account, sitting there. But then they may love one area of their business that excites them so much, and they never gave themselves permission to do that area.
Interesting.
They loved it.
Yeah.
But they're like, but I can't really do that because I need to hit this profit thing. And it's like, dude, you don't even need it. You could retire. But not just retire like in a comfortable thing, retire in luxury for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So I was just like so blown away by that because I was witnessing these people that were a potential future version of me.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with them because they're beautifully natured people, but that fear aspect of their consciousness is dictating their decision making where they can't give themselves permission to do things that are going to light them up most.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Interesting.
I don't want to find myself there.
I don't know if this is happening for them, but like what I was hearing in your share as well as a potential is that like taking the money aside, you've got this thing in the business coaching that you've mastered, right? Like you can just, that you can step into it and walk away feeling like you've done a good job. And then you've got this new thing that your heart's calling you towards, but it's new. And so like there's this stepping into that awkward phase of learning and finding your feet with it, and like that can be a deterrent at times as well.
Yeah. For me, there's a very big fear of the memory of the past and reliving it. So it's like there's a part of me that's scared. It's almost like it's a false fear. It's not actually legitimate, but it's like that's what I experience, and what still lingers around for me is like I'm scared of becoming the person I used to be. That person's beautiful and equally valuable and worthy of love, but I'm scared of tripping into that painful experience hundreds. Because I have adrenal fatigue, for example. Yeah. Where like I completely burnt my adrenals out and had like no energy from working 100-hour weeks every single week. Mm-hmm. So there's a part of me that's nervous of tripping into that and like associates to say, don't go back to that. That's painful. Yeah. Even though it's aligned. Yeah. And I can lean in. So I'm leaning in my way, but it's going to take a little bit to delve into that new territory and my new passions. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Which I'm so here for.
Well, I can definitely say that, in this new area that you're putting together, like I've been to your latest workshop, the Art of Courage, and it was super supportive and enlightening for me in my life and my wife's life, and we both got so much out of it, and so it clearly is something that is aligned to you and your journey. And is there anything you want to say about that workshop in terms of anybody coming up, or anything that might help people feel into if that's something they want to be a part of?
Yeah, I would say that if anyone resonated with this, that's like where I teach my approach for balancing the internal and the external. Like I teach how do you create success, build, grow, and get the most out of yourself. Because I still value investing. Like when you said that before, it excites me. I gamify investing and I save very diligently and I love investing. It's intolerable for me to do something that's misaligned. But how do you balance that? How do you strike the balance between doing the emotional healing work, which we haven't even covered at all today, or the spiritual practices? Because it's just, I think, having the courage to prioritize something different leads to everything else naturally unfolding. But I'm at a place now where I've found it very confusing. Like, how do I show up and dominate business in a way that's aligned for me and make big, courageous decisions and whatnot, but also do the emotional work, but also have a meaningful relationship while also deepening my relationship with oneness and the divine through spirituality. So the workshop is a series of theory and practices that help navigate shifting your lifestyle to being integrated and fulfillment driven.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fun to run. I would love for you to come along. If you resonate with my message, then you can find out more on my website, which is ryanmagdziarz.com.
Beautiful. And I love the way that you've applied courage to actually living a fulfilled life, right? Like, because I think from your story at the start, I'm just going to say it's pretty objective. You have a lot of courage, right? You've actually, relative to most people, exercised so much courage in so many ways, and that journey has led you to wanting to apply that to living a fulfilled life, emotionally and spiritually.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I think like the most courageous thing that someone could ever do is prioritize fulfillment.
Yeah,
that's why. But then that same feeling of like, I'm gonna die, because that's what courage, its fear is. It feels like I'm gonna die. So when we prioritize that in our experience over our attachments externally, it feels like we're gonna die.
Yeah.
If we're gonna make a big business deal, it feels like we're gonna die. If we're gonna invest a bunch of money in advertising, it feels like we're gonna die. If we're gonna be vulnerable in our relationship, it feels like we're gonna die.
Yeah.
So the epicenter that ties together what I teach at that workshop is how fear is the block to every single area of life. It's the ultimate block towards fulfillment. And so learning to navigate it, aka be courageous, is what's needed. It's just that we have, because society is very externally driven, then they take a concept like courage and boldness, and it's always about doing big external things, which it is. It is also about that, but it's also about all these other ways.
Well,
nice personal development practice.
You were telling us maybe time to land this plane, but I just want to say thank you so much for this chat, brother, and for having you in my life. It's such a privilege to have someone who's so focused on living a fulfilled life and sharing that message with the world around you, including your friends.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, perfect. Is there any final things that you want to share with anyone listening to it?
Just that, thank you for having me on. Just that if you're here listening to this and you got all the way to the end of this interview, it says a lot about where you're at on your journey. It says a lot about how developed you are. And also, because we're talking about things that are a bit for the general population woo-woo, talking a lot about fulfillment and spirituality, it shows that there's a lot of emotional maturity there and a lot of readiness for you to be able to take an extra degree of leadership in your life to prioritize fulfillment. So amazing stuff. And we kind of spoke about philosophies of what it looks like to transition. However, and like I could teach you a bunch of things at the Art of Courage workshop, which would be really supportive as well. And where you are is like just irrefutably perfect. It's like absolutely perfect. No drastic changes need to be made in this moment. There's nothing wrong. It's not better to awaken to a experience. We come here as a human. It's not like, again, God's stuffed up to create the contrast of prioritizing results versus experience and having a fear brain versus a love aspect of our mind. They're all to create contrast and experience. So there's no wrong. There's no right. There's no like best path. Where you are is perfect. And your unique flavor, the way that you're going to go out and serve with your journey is so perfect as well. It's like our paths are different, so we hit a different audience. And your path is perfect as well. So honoring you for being on this journey, and thanks so much for tuning in today.
Beautiful. Thanks Thanks for joining us. Much
I'll
love.
just say one more thing is that reach out to me if you. I would love to receive a message if anything resonated with you or you had a follow-up question. You can just email me ryan@ryanmagic.com, or you can shoot me a message on Instagram @theryanmagic. That email is great. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Please do that.
Perfect. And we'll include some links in the show notes as well. So take care, have a beautiful day, and we'll see you soon. Much love.
Thank you so much for joining us on Leaders with Heart today. We appreciate you being here and hope you found a lot of value out of today's conversation. Now, if you did, it would be great if you could share this with someone else who might appreciate the conversation. They're going to get a lot of lessons and value out of it. We're going to appreciate it massively that you've shared it, and you're going to feel good about the process. So it's a massive win-win-win, which we're all about here. And if you want to connect, if you have any questions or you just want to start a conversation, I love hearing from people like yourself. So you can find me on LinkedIn @leaderswithheart or on Instagram @pattymac.truth. That's pattymac.truth, or the website is leaderswithheart.com.au. So until then, have a beautiful day. I'll see you next time.